Madeline Swan is at home with her drunk mother when she notices something in the snow. A man wearing a mask suddenly appears and Madeline tries to wake her mother, but she is passed out, so she runs to hide. The masked man enters the home introducing himself as Scifi Safin, whose family was murdered by Madeline's father, Mr. White, under orders from Ernst Stavro Blofeld. Scifi kills Madeline's mother, then goes looking for Madeline, who shoots him multiple times. Madeline drags Scifi's body out into the snow, but he is not dead. Madeline takes off running over a frozen lake, but she eventually falls into the icy waters. Scifi watches her struggle and has a change of heart, deciding to save her. In the present, Madeline is on vacation with James Bond, and she reminds him to relax as she sees him looking around, reassuring him that no one is coming. That night, as they lay in bed, Madeline brings up his past lover Vesper, who is buried nearby. She thinks he needs to let her go so they can have a future together and convinces him to visit her grave. The next morning, Bond kisses Madeline goodbye and heads towards the cemetery. The cemetery keeper gets a young man to lead Bond to Vesper's grave, where he tells her he misses her. He then sees a card nearby with a Spectre logo. Then the grave suddenly explodes. Bond recovers and, worried about Madeline, he rushes to the apartment. A car then tries to hit him, but Bond barely avoids it. He is surrounded by Spectre operatives led by Primo, a mercenary with a bionic eye. They open fire, so Bond jumps from the bridge, lands on the walkway below, and takes off. Primo cuts him off, but Bond attacks him. Primo tells Bond that Blofeld sends his regards and reveals that Madeline is the daughter of Spectre. Bond jumps on Primo's bike and races back to the apartment. There he confronts Madeline, demanding to know how Spectre knew his location. She is too frightened to answer, so Bond leaves in his car. They are soon being chased by mercenaries when Madeline gets a phone call. It is Blofeld who tells her sacrifice will be their glory. Madeline insists that she did not betray him, but he doesn't believe her. They are almost cut off, but Bond releases mines from the car to slow down the men, but not long after a car slams into them. The men catch up and surround the car, then begin to pepper the bulletproof body with bullets. Bond doesn't move, but observes as Primo attempts to shoot his windows open and Madeline freaking out. Realizing the men are planning to kill her as well, Bond activates headlight guns, laying down gunfire in a 360 before releasing smoke and escaping. He brings Madeline to a train station, telling her goodbye and pushing her onto a train, telling her she'll never see him again. 5 years later, Spectre agents break into a secret MI6 lab. Inside, scientist Valdo Abrachev gets a call from his secret boss Scifi warning him the Spectre has arrived and they will come after him as planned. Abrachev then transfers files to a memory card and swallows it, just as the lights go out. The Spectre agents led by Primo burst into the lab, taking out security before gathering the scientists. Primo demands that Abrachev lead him to the weapon Heracles, and they take another scientist with them before killing the others. Abrachev and the other scientist reveal the Heracles, a DNA, programmable bioweapon, so Primo kills the second scientist. The agents then activate a weapon that attaches magnets to the elevator shaft walls, and magnets attached to their clothing slow their descent before they blow the lab. MI6 boss M is alerted to the attack and theft, but decides to spin the story as a gas leak and wants Bond brought in. Meanwhile, Bond has been living out his days in Jamaica. He gets back to his villa one day and realizes that someone has been inside his apartment from a smoked cigar. Bond then heads into town and notices he is being followed, so he cuts off his tail only to see his old friend CIA agent Felix. Along with him is State Department agent Logan Ash, who wants a favor from Bond. They head to a club where Logan explains that they want Bond to extract Valdo Abrachev out of Cuba, where Spectre is set to host a party. Bond heads to the bar when he bumps into a woman who flashes a smile. Felix tells him he is the only one he will trust with a mission like this, but Bond turns him down and leaves, unaware Primo is also inside. He gets to his car only to find it disabled, and the same woman from the bar offers him a ride on her motorcycle. She introduces herself as Nomi, a diver, and brings Bond back to his villa. Their Bond decides to cut to the chase as he knows she was the one who disabled his car and that she is MI6. Nomi warns him to stay away from Abrachev or she won't hesitate to shoot him. She gives Bond a cell phone to get in contact with M before revealing that she is the new 007. M has Q, their tech genius, go through Abrachev's computer but refuses to explain what he is looking for. Bond then calls demanding to know what M is up to get Spectre involved, but M warns him to stay out of it. M pulls up a live feed of Blofeld, who is in their custody, to keep an eye on him. Bond now feels compelled to take up the CIA mission and contacts Felix, agreeing to the mission. Bond sails to Cuba, and he sees Nomi also arrive, and she waves to him. Bond goes to meet Felix's CIA asset Paloma, who gives him a suit and reveals she's had only 3 weeks of training for this mission. The two soon get to the Spectre party and stop at the bar where Paloma gives him an earpiece. Meanwhile, Abrachev prepares a sample of the Heracles for Primo, but secretly installs a different gene coding before handing it to Primo, who then loads it into the ventilation system. Bond and Paloma enter the party where he identifies all the Spectre agents present and notices they're wearing earpieces, so Paloma hacks their frequency. Bond is shocked to hear Blofeld speaking to the guests. Paloma spots Abrachev, but Bond hears Blofeld saying he can see him. 3 bald men enter the party with one holding a camera, and they point it at Bond as Blofeld addresses Bond directly, telling him this is his end. Heracles is released from the vents intended on killing Bond, but instead kills all Spectre agents it touches. They see Abrachev nearby, who then tries to escape, but Bond stops him and takes a memory card. The two then shoot their way out of the building, but Nomi rappels through the roof and grabs Abrachev. She rappels across to another building, but soon comes under gunfire from Spectre agents. Bond and Paloma are also forced to fight off the agents coming after them.
I'll hold him up!
Bond grabs a rifle and steps out, laying down cover fire while Paloma gets a car. Nomi is distracted laying down gunfire, so Paloma drives into the scaffolding Abrachev is standing on, causing him to fall down to them. Bond and Paloma escape with him just as cops arrive and surround Nomi, but she causes a distraction and escapes. Bond and Paloma part ways, and he leads Abrachev to Nomi's plane. Bond flies them to Felix's boat and demands to know what is going on. Abrachev tries to explain that Bond was never the intended target, and he did everything according to plan. Bond thinks M was the one who ordered him to kill Spectre, but Abrachev reveals it was Logan. Logan pulls his gun and shoots Felix in the stomach. Bond disarms him and the two fight. Logan goes for his gun, but Bond escapes to the lower deck, where Logan locks him inside. Logan reveals he is working for scifi, then plants an explosive on the boat. Meanwhile, Bond is tending to Felix, who is not looking too good, but Bond reassures him he'll be okay. Bond goes to look for a way out when the bomb explodes, and Logan and Abrachev watch the explosion as they fly away. Bond finds Felix as the boat begins to take in water and sink. Felix tells Bond to leave him behind and escape, and Bond, hesitant to leave his friend, hangs on to him in his last moments before he dies and is taken by the water. Bond barely manages to escape from the sinking boat and get to the surface, where he finds a lifeboat. He returns home to get his car and sets out on his mission to get revenge for his friend. He stops by the MI6 office, where Nomi demands Abrachev's location, but Bond ignores her and excuses himself into a meeting with M. M, his former boss, had always thought Bond was dead, but was really disappointed to hear that he returned and began working for the CIA. He accuses Bond of getting them into this mess, but Bond reminds him he was the one who created a secret weapon which could now be anywhere in the world. Bond makes him a deal. He'll find Logan, and in return, he wants Blofeld, but M disagrees. Bond adds that Blofeld was able to run a Spectre meeting from his cell, but M insists that no one has access to him. He should have shut Heracles down, but M tells him he doesn't answer to him and thinks Bond is overreaching by questioning his judgment. He tells Bond to get out, as his services are no longer required, and Bond leaves without an argument. M then orders Nomi to investigate Blofeld thoroughly for any leaks. Moneypenny then brings Bond to Q's home. He wants to know what is on the drive he took from Abrachev, and Q refuses at first until he learns it has something to do with Heracles. He also wants to know what is going on, so he accesses the card to see a DNA database of thousands of individuals. Moneypenny recalls investigating numerous data breaches around the world, and Bond thinks Blofeld knows who is behind this. He needs to speak with him, but learns there is only one person that has access to him, and that's his psychiatrist Madeleine Swan. Madeleine gets to her office for a client session, and there sits Cipher, but she does not recognize him. As they talk about life and death, Cipher reveals he saved a life once and thinks he is now connected with that person as they belong to their savior. He then hands her a box, and Madeleine is shocked to see his broken mask. She is shocked to realize who is in front of her, demanding to know what he wants. He wants a favor, and Madeleine tells him he killed her mother, but Cipher reminds her that her father killed his entire family. He wants her to wear a Heracles-laced cologne the next time she visits Blofeld. Madeleine refuses, but Cipher threatens to kill the person she loves the most as he knows her secret. Bond confronts him for hiring Madeleine as she has secrets, but he reveals Blofeld will only speak with her. He explains that Heracles was developed to protect his agents by removing them from dangerous situations. He is willing to take full responsibility for any fallout, but he is not a traitor and has dedicated his life to protecting his country. Bond reveals that their enemy wants to kill Blofeld, then move on to wiping out whomever they wish and achieving total control. M wants all the help he can get to take their enemy down, and Bond agrees to join the mission. Nomi gets to M's office to see Bond there and learns he has been reinstated as a 00, but they don't tell her the number. The team have recovered data about one of the dead Spectre agents where 5 other members of the family also passed after contact. M reveals to the team the initial aim of Heracles, to pass through individuals to get to a target, but now Abrachev has modified Heracles to target from individuals to entire ethnicities. M orders Bond and Nomi to question Blofeld, then find Abrachev and put a stop to this madness. Bond tells Nomi to find Logan Ash, then she'll find Abrachev and wishes her luck. Q hacks the bionic eye that Blofeld was using to communicate with Spectre and accesses the media. Meanwhile, Bond is being led to Blofeld's interrogation room when he comes face to face with Madeleine. Bond has to gather himself. He goes to shake her hand, but she leaves him hanging, not keen to reconnect with him. As they wait for Blofeld, Bond notices that Madeleine is shaking, but she plays it off as nothing. As Blofeld is being led to them, Madeleine starts to freak out and Bond grabs her arm, but she insists on getting out of the room. The former archenemies face each other for the first time in years. Bond mocks him for his failure in Cuba, but offers to save his life if he gives up a name. Q is able to find footage of Logan from Blofeld's bionic eye, and he alerts Nomi. Instead of giving a name, Blofeld begins to taunt Bond about Madeleine, revealing he had blown up Vesper's grave and framed Madeleine, just so he could get his revenge on Bond and take away everything from him. Bond grabs Blofeld out of anger, and when another agent comes to calm him down, they are shocked to see Blofeld dead. Afterwards, Bond learns that the nanobots will stay in his system forever. He recalls touching Madeleine, and they want to track her down, asking Bond for any leads, but he claims to have never known her. Bond, however, tracks Madeleine down to her childhood home, demanding to know who gave her the nanobots. The two end up talking about their past and their falling out, and Bond tells her he had always loved her and regrets sending her away. The two share a kiss, but it is interrupted by Madeleine's daughter Mathilde, her secret. M learns Nomi is on Logan's trail, and she requests permission to kill. M commends her for her work, but she admits that Bond gave her the lead. Bond watches Madeleine put Mathilde to bed, and despite her looking like him, Madeleine insists that she doesn't belong to him. She brings Bond to her father's secret room where she tells him the history between her father and Cipher, and how he killed her mother but spared her life. She tells him about an island, Cipher's family island, and Bond snaps photos and alerts him. Bond tells Madeleine they have a million reasons to find Cipher, but she just gave him a reason to kill him. The next morning, Bond makes breakfast for Mathilde when he gets a call from M. They have found Cipher's island, and satellite images show constant activity there. Bond learns that Nomi is closing in on Logan and gets her location, but realizes that they are headed straight to him. Bond grabs Madeleine and Mathilde, and leaves the house in a hurry and requests an extraction from Q. As they drive, two cars speed past them, but they soon notice the cars on their tail. The cars easily catch up, but Bond pushes one of them off the road, while the other flips and crashes. At that moment, a small army of cars, bikers, and even a chopper appear, and Bond is forced to push the Jeep to its limit. He turns into a forest covered with dense fog and shuts off the engine before continuing on foot with Bond carrying Mathilde. Bond runs into a biker, but Madeleine shoots him dead. Bond leaves Madeleine and Mathilde to hide inside a shack. He takes off running and firing shots into the air to draw the men away from them. He hits the first car that appears with an explosive and kills the men inside. He runs the truck's tow wire across some trees, which drops a biker. Logan shows up and opens fire, but Bond leads him into a trap which crashes his car. Logan painfully crawls from the car begging for his life, but Bond reminds him about Felix and crushes Logan with his own car. At the hideout, Liat Cypher finds Madeleine. Bond races back only to find them missing and sees Liat Cypher's chopper taking them away. Bond is walking when Nomi finally arrives and picks him up. Bond explains what is happening, and Nomi plans to join him on his mission. The two board the plane where M briefs them on the objectives of the mission: kill Abrachev and Liat Cypher and retrieve Mathilde, Madeleine, and Heracles. Nomi then requests that Bond be reassigned 007 and M agrees. The team then prepare their gadgets and weapons for the assault. At his base, Liat Cypher receives a vial of nanobots programmed specifically for Madeleine and Mathilde. Madeleine wonders how damaged he must be to threaten a child, but he thinks she is the same, as she fell in love with a killer and had his child. To show his control over Madeleine, Liat Cypher takes Mathilde from her and walks through his garden of poisonous plants, forcing Madeleine to watch before having his men take Madeleine away, separating her from Mathilde. Bond and Nomi board a submersible glider and are dropped from an aeroplane near Liat Cypher's island. As the island comes into view, Nomi dives the submersible and they infiltrate the island. Bond uses his watch to cut all the cameras, and Nomi plants a device that gives Q a scan of the island's layout. He then directs the two, who soon come upon people in hazmat suits in a large pool cultivating nanobots. The walls are extremely thick, and Q soon loses their signal. Bond and Nomi break into a nearby lab, gathering all the scientists. Abrachev tries to escape, but Nomi drops him hard. The two then begin to plan explosives all around the lab before they realize that Liat Cypher is planning to target millions and know they must destroy this facility. Safin then talks over the speakers, telling Bond they both have something the other wants and they should meet. Bond leaves Nomi the detonator, telling her to blow up the lab if he doesn't return. Primo has joined Liat Cypher and is left to keep an eye on Madeleine. Liat Cypher has left her a tea to drink and Primo demands she drink it, but Madeleine throws the tea in his face and locks him inside the room. Bond goes to meet Liat Cypher only to see him sitting with Mathilde. Liat Cypher asks him to disarm himself and take a seat at his table. Liat Cypher doesn't think they're quite alike, both wanting to make the world a better place just in different ways. Liat Cypher, however, thinks he is the god that the world needs as he wants to change the world, while Bond wants to keep it the same. He demands that Bond remove his bombs and leave his island if he wants Mathilde back. As for Madeleine, she stays with him, but Bond refuses to agree to his terms. Liat Cypher grabs Mathilde and Bond stops him and appears to agree to his terms, but swiftly kills all his men while Liat Cypher escapes with Mathilde. He is leading Mathilde away with his men when Mathilde bites his hand, so he leaves her behind to meet with his buyers. Q picks up the buyers arriving by speedboats, and M urges Bond to get moving. Meanwhile, Nomi finds herself slowly being surrounded, so she leads Abrachev away, shooting a guard who falls into the large pool and begins to disintegrate. Abrachev offers her a vial of Heracles targeted at Africans, but Nomi kicks him into the pool before taking out more guards. Bond reunites with Madeleine, and they are looking for Liat Cypher when they run into Mathilde and then into Nomi. Bond finally reconnects to Q, demanding a missile strike on the island. They don't have the clearance for missile strikes, but M is considering it. Bond and Nomi lead Madeleine and Mathilde to a speedboat for them to escape. He gives Mathilde his sweater and says his goodbyes to Madeleine, telling her he will join her soon. Nomi gives him the detonator and Bond heads to stop Liat Cypher. M explains that if they strike the island, the world countries will want answers. But Bond reminds him what will happen if they don't, and tells M to fire on his mark. All this time, Bond is taking out Liat Cypher's men while heading to the control room for the blast doors. He blows up the lab filled with men, escapes some grenade blasts, and begins battling a small army of men, but another grenade blast knocks him down. Bond recovers and pushes on with his pistol, taking out more men. Primo then attacks him, but Bond uses his high-tech watch to blow his bionic eye, killing him. He then finds the control room, and with Q's help he starts opening the blast doors. He orders them to launch the missiles, and M authorizes the strike from a Navy vessel nearby. With 9 minutes to go, Bond is heading out when the blast doors begin to close. He races back to the control room when Liat Cypher shoots him multiple times, but Bond still manages to grab him and break his only good arm. Liat Cypher still has a trick up his sleeve, and he breaks the vial containing the nanobots targeted at Madeline and Mathilde, turning Bond into a weapon if he leaves. Knowing he can never leave, Bond shoots Liat Cypher dead and makes his way to the control room. He reopens the blast doors, ignoring Q's pleas for him to get out. Bond instead requests to talk with Madeline, who is with Nomi. He tells her he doesn't think he will make it out of this one, and she breaks down crying. She confesses that Mathilde is his daughter, but Bond knew all along. He watches as the missiles come into view, telling Madeline that he loves her before the island is bombarded with explosives, destroying Heracles and ending the legend known as James Bond.